Hey, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to share with you how I teach expeditions. It's just a few steps. This isn't a video about how to play expeditions, but rather a video about how I teach it, how to onboard players into the game. The first thing I do after setting up everything, after giving everyone player mats and characters, setting up the board or the map, is that I explain the overall idea of the game. The overall idea of the game is to gain the most coins, to have the most wealth at the end of the game. And I point to the base camp to show players how they'll gain most of those coins. This category isn't specific. There are many different ways to gain coins, like on the map and on cards. I don't go into that here. Rather, I talk about these very briefly, from getting glory on here and also solving quests, upgrading items, and also gaining corruption tokens. In this general overview, I wouldn't recommend going into what all those things mean, but by drawing attention to the base camp, it shows players that there is a way to remember how those coins are gained during the game. The next thing I would do is talk about the general flow of the game in brief, to say that early on in the game, you'll probably be exploring and gaining cards and workers. In the middle of the game, you'll probably be vanquishing corruption and enhancing your mech with upgraded cards and melded meteorites. And also, in the final third of the game, you'll be racing to get glory. You're racing to be putting stars on here. The end of the game will trigger when 4 stars of any one player are on the glory track. Next, I would have a turn taken of the game. So you can either take the turn yourself. I generally like to maybe guide the player to my left through a turn, or maybe even guide the player to your right through their turn. That might work a little bit better here. So say, choose the player to your right, guide them through their first turn. And I've set up the action system for expeditions so that on the first turn, you get to explain all 3 actions, because your action token starts on refresh. At the beginning of your turn, you shift it over here, and then you take all 3 exposed actions in any order. You can choose them in any order: move, play, and gather. And again, I would guide the player through this turn. So say, in this example, you might just walk them through it in this order. Actually, I would go move, gather, then play on the first turn. So have them move their mech up to 1 to 3 spaces, and I would recommend that you have them move it to an exposed location. So have them move it to an exposed location. The only locations exposed at the beginning of the game are in the south. Have them move it to that location. Then have them gather. When you gather, you gain the benefit at the bottom of the card. So in this case, they're drawing the top card of the deck, and then they're rescuing a card. So it could be, in this case, it would be the card that they just gained, because cards that you gain by default go into your active row. That's where you can rescue from. So they've gathered, and then you'd have them play a card. And so you can have them play one of the 2 cards in their hand, which they start out with a character and a companion. Have them play the card, and when they play that card, here, I'll pull up a character. You'll show them in either order. They'll gain the core value and activate the ability if they have a worker of that color to place on the card. In this case, in the example that I gave, they don't have a worker, so they'll just gain the core value. In this case, it is just 1 power. You can say that after, these icons are saying that after they have 1 star or even 2 stars, this core value increases later on in the game. So you've walked a player through their turn. After you're done that, again, this is the player to your right, so you're going to take the next turn. I would also say that that's the whole game. You're going to be going through the game, taking turns like that. You might also mention at this point that on their next turn, they must shift their token up to cover one of these 3 actions, and they'll take the other 2 actions instead. And that most of the game will be spent shifting the token around within here. So if I've taken move on a previous turn, at the beginning of my turn, I might shift over to cover gather, and then on my next turn, I will move and play, and so on. You're shifting around the token in there. But before it becomes your turn, you might also explain that sometimes you will refresh. The point of refreshing is to gain your workers and cards back to your hand and back to your mech mat. And so if you'd like, you can take a turn where you move a token onto refresh. The benefit of doing that is that you get all those cards and workers back, and that on your next turn, it shifts over here, so you get a more powerful turn where you get all 3 actions like you've done on your first turn. Then on your turn, I would recommend that you take a turn where you explore a location where you actually explore a location rather than going to one that is already explored in the south. So you're going to move up into the central region and reveal one of these tiles. And you show what happens when you explore, which is that you gain the map token, you flip over the tile. If you have a gather benefit or a gather action that turn, you have to gather. And you also, as you reveal this tile, you will cover it with corruption, adding up to at least 5. So you'll draw random corruption tiles out of the bag and put them here. This is a good way to show players what happens when you explore, that it isn't dangerous. It's unexpected. You don't know what you're getting, but it isn't dangerous to explore. And it shows that you gain the map token and you're seeding it with corruption tokens. And this also gives you an opportunity to talk about solving and vanquishing. When you vanquish is how you remove corruption from tiles. Solving is when you have quest cards and you're going to a specific location. So if I have a quest for location 11 and I go to location 11 and I play a card that says solve, then you can solve that quest on location 11. Then I would recommend taking a few turns because the other actions in the game or other benefits in the game, core benefits of the game, won't matter for a little while. So just have everyone take a few turns. And then after they've taken a few turns, you can talk about the kind of the leveling up systems, the way that you enhance your mech. You can talk about melding and upgrading specifically. And as you're doing that, you can remind players the different ways that they can gain glory in the game, which include solving quests, melding, and upgrading, as I just mentioned. So you can talk about how they work and then point players to this so they can start to focus on a few different categories for glory. And that, my friends, is how you teach expeditions. If you have any comments or other teaching tips, let me know in the comments below. Thanks.